Hi friends, as promised, I am starting with my second story, which is a Ruskin Bond story, Susanna's Seven Husbands. But before I start, I would like to remind you that please, if you like the storytelling sessions, my Bengali stories, English stories, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that as soon as I upload a new video or a new story, you will get the updates and you will be able to listen to it. So, this Susanna Seven Husbands, this story was also adopted as a movie directed by Vishal Bharadwaj. It had Priyanka Chopra in the lead role, and the name was Saat Khoon Maaf. So, that movie was based on this story written by Ruskin Bond. Locally, the tomb was known as the grave of the seven times married one. You would be forgiven for thinking it was Bluebeard's grave. He was reputed to have killed several wives in turn because they showed undue curiosity about a locked room. But this was the tomb of Susanna Anna Maria Yates, and the inscription, most of it which is in Latin, stated that she was mourned by all who had benefited from her generosity, her beneficiaries having included various schools, orphanages, and the church across the road. There was no sign of any other graves in the vicinity, and presumably her husbands had been interred in the old Rajpur graveyard below the Delhi Ridge. I was still in my teens when I first saw the ruins of what had once been a spacious and handsome mansion. Desolate and silent, its well laid paths were overgrown with weeds. Its beds had disappeared under a growth of thorny jungle. The two-storied house had looked across the Grand Trunk Road. Now it lay abandoned, feared, and shunned. It stood encircled in mystery, reputedly the home of evil spirits. Outside the gate along the Grand Trunk Road, thousands of vehicles sped by cars, trucks, buses, tractors, bullock carts, but few noticed the old mansion or its mausoleum. Set back as they were from the main road, hidden by mango, neem, and peepal trees. One old and massive peepal tree grew out of the ruins of the house, strangling it much as its owner was said to have strangled one of her dispensable paramours. As a much married person with a quaint habit of disposing of her husbands whenever she tired of them, Susanna's malignant spirit was said to haunt the deserted garden. I had examined the tomb, I had gazed upon the ruins, I had scrambled through the shrubbery and overgrown rose bushes, but I had not encountered the spirit of this mysterious woman. Perhaps at the time I was too pure and innocent to be targeted by malignant spirits. For malignant she must have been if the stories about her were true. No one had been down into the vaults of the ruined mansion. They were said to be occupied by a family of cobras, traditional guardians of buried treasure. Had she really been a woman of great wealth, and could treasure still be buried there? I put these questions to Naushad, the furniture maker who had lived in the vicinity all his life, and whose father had made the furnitures and fittings for this and other such great houses in Old Delhi. Lady Susanna, as she was known, was much sought after for her wealth, recalled Naushad. She was no miser either. She spent freely, reigning in state in her palatial home, with many horses and carriages at her disposal. You see the stables there behind the ruins? Now they are occupied by bats and jackals. Every evening she rode through the Roshanara gardens, the cynosure of all eyes, for she was beautiful as well as wealthy. Yes, all men sought her favors, and she could choose from the best of them. Many were fortune hunters. She did not discourage any one of them. Some found favor for a time, but she soon tired of them. None of her husbands enjoyed her wealth for very long. Today, no one enters those ruins where once there was mirth and laughter. She was the zamindari lady, the owner of much land, and she administered her estate with a strong hand. She was kind if rents were paid when they fell due, but terrible if someone failed to pay. Well, over 50 years have gone by since she was laid to rest, but still men speak of her with awe. Her spirit is restless, and it is said that she often visits the scenes of her former splendor. She has been seen walking through this gate, or riding in the gardens, or driving in her phaeton down the Rajpur road. And what happened to those husbands? I asked. Most of them died mysterious deaths. Even the doctors were baffled. Tompkins Sahib drank too much. The lady soon tired of him. A drunken husband is a burdensome creature, she used to say. He would have drunk himself to death, but she was an impatient woman and was anxious to replace him. You see, those datura bushes growing wild in the grounds, they have always done well there. Belladonna, I suggested. That's right, Huzur. Introduced in the whiskey soda, they put him to sleep forever. She was quite human in her way. Oh, very human, sir. She hated to see anyone suffer. One Sahib, I don't know his name, drowned in the tank behind the house where the water lilies grew. But she made sure he was half dead already before he fell in. She had large, powerful hands, they say. Why did she bother to marry them? Couldn't she just have had men friends? Not in those days, dear sir. Respectable society would not have tolerated it. Neither in India nor in the West could it have been permitted. She was born out and much ahead of her time, I remarked. True, sir. And remember, most of them were fortune hunters, so we need not waste too much pity on them. Of course, she did not waste any. She was without pity, especially when she found out what they were really after. The snakes had a better chance of survival. How did the other husbands take the leave of this world? Well, the Colonel Sahib shot himself while cleaning his rifle. Purely an accident, Huzur, although some say she had loaded his gun without his knowledge. Such was her reputation by now that she was suspected even when innocent. But she bought her way out of trouble. It was easy enough if you were wealthy. And the fourth husband, oh, he died a natural death. There was a cholera epidemic that year, and he was carried off by the Haija. Although, again, there were some who said that a good dose of arsenic produced the same symptoms. Anyway, it was cholera on the death certificate, and the doctor who signed it was the next to marry her. Being a doctor, he was probably quite careful about what he ate and drank. Yes, he lasted about a year. What happened? He was bitten by a cobra. Well, that was just bad luck, wasn't it? You could hardly blame it on Susanna. No, Huzur, but the cobra was in his bedroom. It was coiled around the bedpost, and when he undressed for the night, it struck. He was dead when Susanna came into the room an hour later. She had a way with snakes. She did not harm them, and they never attacked her. And there were no antidotes in those days Exit the doctor. Who was the sixth husband? A handsome man, an indigo planter. He had gone bankrupt when the indigo trade came to an end. He was hoping to recover his fortune with the good lady's help. But our Susanna, ma'am, she did not believe in sharing her fortune with anyone. How did she remove the indigo planter? It was said that she lavished strong drinks upon him, and when he lay helpless, she assisted him on the road we all have to take by pouring molten lead in his ears. A painless death, I am told, but a terrible price to pay, Huzur, simply because one is no longer needed. We walked along the dusty highway enjoying the evening breeze, and sometime later we entered the Roshanara Gardens. In those days, it was Delhi's most popular and favorable meeting place, also very fashionable. You have told me how six of her husbands died, Noshad. I thought there were seven. Ah, a gallant young magistrate who perished right here, Huzur. They were driving through the park after dark when the lady's carriage was attacked by brigands. In defending her, the gallant young man received a fatal sword wound. Not the lady's fault, Naushad. No, my friend, but he was a magistrate, remember? And the assailants, one of whose relatives had been convicted by him, were out for revenge. Oddly enough, though, two of the men were given employment by the lady Susanna at a later date. You may draw your own conclusions. And were there others? Not husbands, but an adventurer, a soldier of fortune, had come along. He found her treasure, they say. He lies buried with it now in the cellars of the ruined house. His bones lie scattered there among gold and silver and precious jewels. The cobras guard them still, but how he perished was a mystery and remains so till this day. What happened to Susanna? She lived to a good old age, as you know. If she paid for her crimes, it wasn't in this life. As you know, she had no children, but she started an orphanage and gave generously to the poor and to various schools and institutions, including a home for the widows. She died peacefully in her sleep. A merry widow, I remarked, the black widow spider. Don't go looking for Susanna's tomb. It vanished some years ago along with the ruins of her mansion. A smart new housing estate came up on the site, but not after several workmen and a contractor succumbed to snake bite. Occasionally, residents complained of a malignant ghost in their midst who is given to flagging down cars, especially those driven by single men. There have been one or two mysterious disappearances too. Ask anyone living along this stretch of the Delhi Ridge, and they will tell you that that's true. And after dusk, an old fashioned horse and carriage can sometimes be seen driving through Roshinara Gardens. Ignore it, my friend. Don't stop to answer any questions from the beautiful fair lady who smiles at you from behind lace curtains. She is still looking for a suitable husband.